It's a sweet sensation to be able to connect with a band and their music. It feels like medicine in a way. It's a great pick-me-up for when the world's got you down. For me, Gorillaz offers a level of connection that I rarely see in other artists, and I'm confident to say that I'm not alone on that. With their new album, The Mountain, fresh off the airwaves, I thought it would be an appropriate time to reflect on Gorillaz as a whole. What they mean to me, what makes them so unique, and honestly, why we need them now more than ever. These are strange times, and moments like these call for solutions in strange places. I'm not gonna lie folks, trying to figure out how to start with Gorillaz is an enterprise in itself. This band is a cornucopia of influences, references, guests, contributors, media moguls, experimental art, and more.
Hey you guys, I'm just gonna take a bath.
I mean, just starting the research for this video required re-listening to their entire discography, a process that took a month between me and my co-writer. So when we choose to talk about this, we gotta start making some choices about what we're not gonna talk about. And first things first, this video is not going to be covering the multimedia efforts of the band as an art project. If you want that video, Lady Emily's video is both very well researched and very in-depth, and acted as a foundation for this video to build off of. Also, a lot of the research done for this video is based off of the work of the community and their very well upkept Gorillaz wiki, and a variety of YouTube channels preserving the concept art, abandoned websites, interviews, and what else have you. Finally, Rise of the Ogre and Slow Boat to Hades both act as useful primary sources for us to track the band's history and a lot of the creative decisions the band has made.
Blah 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 blah. Bear, what is the point of this video? I'm already bored.
I'm getting there. I don't like that tone. But what we choose to focus on is three things. Defining what a Gorillaz album is, so to speak, giving an overview of their discography leading up to their latest album, and then trying to tie this all together by asking, is Gorillaz still relevant? So, first things first, Gorillaz is a rock, dub, punk, hip-hop, new wave, electronica, orchestral, reggae, rap, R&B...
Someone call an ambulance!
Okay, yeah, so the first problem we have with videos on Gorillaz is how the hell do you define the genre of a band that's defined by subverting genres? When discussing music, often, the first step usually comes with a mention of genre.
Opium. Opium is a subgenre of trap, which was heavily pioneered by Playboi Carti.
For those who have heard the word but maybe not aware of its formal definition, think of music genre as a set of writing and instrumental expectations. When you search for a song on Spotify or Apple Music or Tidal if you're pretentious, you expect a certain type of thing to pop up when you see country or electronic in the description. Country music, for example, is an American genre that is known for its storytelling writing using instruments like guitars and fiddles, with an emphasis on the singer.
I just wanna catch my fish, drive my truck, drink my beer.
Electronic music, on the other hand, is a genre that focuses more on its rhythmic compositions rather than its lyrics, using electronics. Synthesizers and computers are heavily used, creating a distinct artificial sound.
She's really good.
With both of these genres established, I bet some of y'all watching rattled off multiple exceptions and outliers to these definitions. Or, if they fall into them, their fellow artists don't really sound alike. And you'd be correct. Yeah, you like that, don't you? Showing me up in front of my audience? How dare you? Both Johnny Cash and Luke Combs are country artists, but don't sound that similar.
I hear the train a-comin', it's rolling around the bend. Ain't no love in Oklahoma.
Kaytranada and Machine Girl are light years apart in tone. Given that both of these genres are 100+ years old at this point, it's safe to say that expectations have changed with time. And even within the same eras, the art form is constantly being pushed. Art doesn't exist in a vacuum, and that fact allows for growth. We see this with genres splintering into different subgenres, and sometimes with enough time, a whole new genre being created from those moments of innovation.
Play that same song. All right, same song. Here we go.
It starts with sorry.
The most famous example of something like this is being how rock originated from the blues. So, when I say Gorillaz is famous for mixing genres, think of that as expectations and conventions being simultaneously met and broken. So, where do we start this story? It's 1997 and you're listening to the radio, cruising down the highways of sunny California when a funky little...
What the fuck are you talking about? That's not where Blur starts. Bear, are you even a Gorillaz fan? Holy larp, dude.
I mean, I think so. Fine, okay, let's go where it actually began. It's 1994 in the... You know what, the fucking voice is ruined, whatever. It's 1994 in the little island known as the UK. March has arrived and spring break is ramping up. A typical Eurobeat is tied into a slinging guitar line and the high-pitched wail of a skinny twink telling you about the sexuality promiscuous beach on holiday. Blur would proceed to go from being a noteworthy British rock band to a huge Britpop sensation in the EU. Daryl Esau of the BBC would write in Retrospective in 2007.
Albarn, supported ably by guitarist Graham Coxon, bassist Alex James, and drummer Dave Rowntree, mapped out Blur's territory as cultural tourists. Chroniclers of the mores and foibles of the modern world, be it presciently with gender confusion, binge drinking, and the genesis of chav culture, all on girls and boys, premillennial tension and growing older, end of a century, or the renaissance of England's capital city, London loves park life.
I'm bringing this up so we understand Damon a little better for his headspace. As Blur began to pick up into a cultural sensation, battling it out with Oasis, the one thing that would elude the band was an international success, particularly in the States, with one notable exception being the self-parody and meaningless song 2, which the band left on the demo as a joke for the record label. That's right, your most successful US hit was something you thought would get cut. And could you blame them? For Blur, they were considered gods amongst the British folk, the winners of the feud for the soul of Britpop. But elsewhere, their most renowned thing was a song whose most memorable lyric was a catchy woohoo, which stole the guitar line from a Nirvana song. But hey, that's America. Enter Jamie Hewlett. If Damon acts as the heart of Gorillaz, then Jamie acts as the soul. Jamie's career stretches back deep into comics history. Take a peek at the cover of Scott Pilgrim in The Infinite Sadness. Canada's answer to Tank Girl is a phrase meant to pay respect to Hewlett's famous series. It's easy to treat Tank Girl as a bad joke, considering how most people remember it as the infamously bad film adaptation, but,
The chase that follows is long and tedious, and come tea time, the twosome reach a large black mound. If I climb, she won't be able to follow me in that tank!
He's right! I have to follow on foot! Jeez, how come I can hear everything he's saying? Must be something to do with comics and all that crap.
The two climb for what seems like eternity, until finally... Sort this! I can't be bothered to run anymore!
Punty.
Rocky and Tank Girl collapse in the dirt. As they gaze up into the sky, thoughts of death and killing slip away, and something strange happens. So funny. As the laughter dies down, something even stranger happens.
Wow, that was a laugh.
Sure was, baby. Suppose this means I can go free now, eh?
No way, dog breath. You're coming with me. In a body bag? Take a tip from me. If you're a tank pilot, stick by your profession. Don't get greedy and take a bounty on anyone's head. Especially if it's a kangaroo, because when it comes to the crunch, it's really hard to pull the trigger on the honey devil.
Hewlett created Tank Girl with Alan Martin to fill out the magazine that comics alumni Brett Ewins and Steve Dillon started in 1988, known as Deadline. Deadline would quickly find success via Hewlett's Tank Girl, a gritty, punk, and borderline nihilistic comic about a merc for hire in the Australian outback and her homicidal kangaroo boyfriend, Booga. Trying to describe Tank Girl's writing style would be best summarized as incoherent but stylish. It's not meant to be some grand narrative, it's meant to be something you'd leave poking out of your school bag to shock your teacher. I mean, even the structure of the first comic lets Tank Girl act as a narrative bait and switch several times with Booga. She is the main character of her comic, no matter how many men in her world think otherwise. Hewlett would end up becoming well known in the comic scene at this point, but this isn't a Tank Girl video, and we care more about zooming into the most critical junction of both his and Albarn's career, becoming flatmates.
I can't do this anymore.
Whoa there, Pickle.
Yeah, so Damon and Jamie knew each other vaguely in the British fame scene, but the two had historically not gotten along. Jamie had this to say in an interview.
Damon didn't like me because I became friends with his friend Graham. For 10 years, we disliked each other. Then we discovered that we have things in common. We were born in 1968 under the sign of the monkey. At the time, we shared the same apartment in London. We were 30, we had just broken up with our respective girlfriends. We were young, unattached, and most often drunk and broken. One night, we hosted a party at home with 3 Spice Girls, Marianne Faithfull, 2 guys from Radiohead, and Kate Moss. Gorillaz was born from this period of chaos.
One night, as part of their drunken hangouts, the two of them spent time watching MTV. Now, this was the late 90s. This era of music television was one of a malaise of infotainment pieces involving bands and artists as human interests. The music television channel had ultimately become a place where the interest was squarely focused on the people, not the music. Even this is a misnomer in itself, as ultimately, the purpose of this era of MTV was essentially self-advertisement for the music industry, who paid the checks and bought the airtime for their purposes.
It's like people only do things because they get paid. And that's just really sad.
But then, a bright spark of an idea formed between the two of them, between all the bitching. If the music scene was gonna be an artificial wasteland, then goddammit, it might as well have an artificial band to match. It makes sense when you think about it because you have Damon, a musician who felt the artificial constraints of genre and expectations under Blur, and Hewlett, a visual artist with the love of counterculture watching yet another industry get hollowed out. It was simply a match made in heaven. Hey! Hey!
What is it?
Did you fall asleep? You said you were excited for this one.
Well, like, for example, I'm not a Blur fan. I'm a Gorillaz fan. All you've done is talk about the producers of Gorillaz, not the backstory of the actual band.
Well, I thought we could not do that.
What?
Oh, come on. There's so many videos made by excellent creators on this platform to cover the story of Gorillaz as a story. We already talked about Lady Emily's video about Plastic Beach. We watched a bunch of documentaries on the various phases. There's nothing I could add to the work they did. If you want to lean into the vast amount of lore and story present in Gorillaz, then really go check out one of those videos.
All right. Fair enough. So is this going to be about just Damon Albarn and Jamie Hewlett?
Not really. I think that would run counter to the wishes of them as artists and creators. Gorillaz was meant to act as a way for Damon to escape the expectations of labels and experiment and focus on the music as the chief experience, rather than him as an individual. Hewlett, as an artist and writer, was even less interested in spotlighting himself. The whole point of the project was to conceive of a virtual band that doesn't exist who takes up the space you would associate with that era of MTV. Gorillaz has more in common with, say, the Muppets than any kind of brainchild.
So what? We're done? Can we go home?
Buddy, I got like 20 pages left on the script here. We aren't close to being done. Instead, we've chosen to take a different route on this video. Albarn and Hewlett wanted us to treat the band as real, so we will too. So we can actually map out what makes a Gorillaz album feel like a Gorillaz album. Now, while we go into each of these main albums, I also plan on giving my thoughts on the record as a whole. I know that's not the main focus, but when else am I gonna get to talk about Gorillaz? Gotta make it count!
Okay, finally, now we're talking. I really enjoy these guys' music.
Oh, that's great. It would be nice to hear your input then. What's your favorite song, if you don't mind me asking?
Ghost Train.
You are a pretty chill guy, you know that? So you start this new project, a virtual rock group that hasn't really been seen in the public eye since Alvin and the Chipmunks and the Archies. How do you introduce this to the world? Through absolute aura, that's how. Gorillaz' self-titled album really is a classic. It has such an iconic sound for the early 2000s. Each song on the record incorporates sounds pulling from British rock, electronic, Jamaican dub, hip-hop, trip-hop, and more. It blends them all well to establish such a robust sound that feels like its own thing. Take Rock the House, featuring Del the Funky Homo Sapien, who is also Del, Russell's friend's ghost that lives in his head. This song is a fun jam that molds elements of rock, rap, and jazz together. Tomorrow Comes Today contrasts this with a very depressing dub song about 2D feeling trapped. And neither of these feel out of place, it flows surprisingly well together. And I'd be remiss to not mention the biggest song from this album, and arguably in their entire discography, Clint Eastwood. This was a lot of people's first introduction to Gorillaz, and what a powerful statement it was. On a sonic and conceptual level, Gorillaz' self-titled acts as both an introductory first album to the clashing moods and personalities of Gorillaz, and the take no prisoners approach to their take on pop culture. Rehash openly mocks the self-consuming nature of chasing pop hits with the chanting of "It's the money or stop," which landed differently to the radios of 2001. Many of the tracks would use heavy, distinct bass lines and synthesizers in a way that would put it at odds with the club hits of its era. The previously mentioned Tomorrow Comes Today and Rock the House and 19-2000 would blend rock with other genres like Britpop, rap rock, and dub. The through line that defines this album is the heavy focus on the drums and the bass, which, in the narrative of the first album, is the collaborative efforts of Murdoch Nichols and Russell. It ends up creating an album defined by musical conflict. Is it pop music? Is it rock music? Is it dub? All of this comes together to make something that leaves an impression that haunts your stereo and makes you stop dead when the dead rise in Clint Eastwood. I won't say that this is a perfect album overall, there are some skips that I don't really care for, but that's to be expected. Punk and M1A1 don't really gel with me, and maybe that's because I'm not the biggest fan of that punk sound. I can confidently say though that these are just personal nitpicks. Damon and Jamie did an amazing job trying to convey their message through all the fun and charm. At the end of the day, they wanted to create a fake band that they perceived to be just as fake as the bands parading around the top 100. But instead of just making schlock, they were introducing a younger generation of listeners to all of these different sounds they normally wouldn't hear. Dub and trip hop weren't the most common things to hear on British airwaves, especially for kids, but Gorillaz bucked that trend. It set the tone going forward that there was medicine under the peanut butter. Musical medicine, I don't know, but I hope you get what I'm trying to say.
Schlatt, what happened to this peanut butter? Well, you said you weren't sure if we were going to use it, and so I did. Oh my God.
Gorillaz was here and had something to say. The question remained, though, whether it could do something with the stage it had acquired.
Fool me once. Shame on you.
Demon Days would release in 2005 to glowing reception. How do I even talk about this album? I mean, it's widely considered their best work. It pleased critics and music listening audiences alike.
But 2005 is a much different year than 2001. And if Gorillaz exuded the heady, optimistic, future-forward vibes of the turn of the millennium, Demon Days is as theatrically foreboding as its title. One of the few pop records made since 9/11 that captures the eerie unease of living in the 21st century.
Said Stephen Thomas Erlewine, the former senior editor of AllMusic, someone much more capable of describing the impact this album had. But let's discuss it as a whole rather than its impact. The world in a state of constant night is the running phrase that drove Damon and Jamie to make this album, a product of one of many animated features that never came to light for the band. This is the quintessential post-9/11 piece of music, and Gorillaz fully envelops itself into the themes of distrust, change, and dark forces moving in the shadows. Mostly gone are the fun-grooved romps with artificial hooks, and in its place we find reflection on the Bush-era world. And if anyone questions the political nature of this album or any of the works by Gorillaz, I want you to consider truly to think before you speak. Because this is some of the most blatant, in-your-face commentary if you just take a fraction of a moment to listen. You can hear the counterculture ethos self-titled live by, but this is a battered and gritty spiritual journey, the music of the end times. Gone are the atmospheric tracks like M1A1 and Double Bass. From here on out, it's all nothing but bombs. Kids with Guns is a haunting new wave melody with a simple head-bobbing beat. Dirty Harry, my personal favorite on the album, keeping the Clint Eastwood running gag, is an electronic hip-hop party about the horrors of the human soldier. Feel Good Inc. with De La Soul is simply a perfection of rap rock. What is there even to say about this track? El Mañana is a beautiful, somber piece of acoustic balladry. November Has Come has one of MF Doom's best performances in rhymes. Dare is a club staple and a good example of dance music that I'm mentioning solely for the reason that I can play the live performance here quickly. Fire Coming Out of the Monkey's Head has probably aged the best out of the songs on this album because it's their One Tin Soldier. Definitely darker though. If you can listen to that story and not think of recent events, then maybe try listening again, pretty please. The creative sourcing for the virtual band here has Gorillaz reel in from their sudden success. Slow Boat to Hades, their compilation DVD, shows both the production process and the band's new self-perception. Where self-titled would have Murdoch be the man behind the band's organization, Demon Days is Murdoch fully taking over as the main organizer of the album, and his influences pull throughout. Demon Days is an album about warnings, about demons of all kinds, demons of alcoholism, of depression, of oppression, and of despair. Remember the bass line we brought up in self-titled? Here in Demon Days, they take full control of the structure, the anchor that keeps the tracks contained under the newfound sound. What's interesting though is how the later songs on the album start taking a more lighthearted, optimistic approach compared to the darker tones earlier on. It's almost like it sheds Murdoch's influence altogether and lets a more hopeful message come through. Something lighter, something more optimistic, as if it's truly darkest before the dawn. I get that I'm rambling for this a bit, but holy shit, it's hard to not gush about how well done Damon, Danger Mouse, and the team did for Demon Days. If you're a fan of this band already, I know you are probably sick of hearing people praise this one album, but seriously, it really is that good. But two things can be true at the same time, and a lot of people did drop off the project after this album. I mean, surely you can't top yourself again, right? Right?
I'm the trash man.
Plastic Beach is one of my favorite albums of all time. Apparently living on an island of garbage makes for a great place to make music because that's where the band set up shop this go around. Summoning all of the collaborators to Point Nemo to create an environmentally focused synthetic groove. This record is the most electronic Gorillaz has gotten to this point, and it's for good reason too. Contrasting the removal of nature with the coldness of the machine really pushes the messages in the listener's ear. As it goes on, you can actually hear it take over the soundscape more and more. What starts off as more traditional compositions like White Flag ends on a cold embrace like Pirate Jet. It's a nice detail. Does it lack subtlety? 100%. Do I care? Fuck no. Its execution is what matters, and it delivers. Plastic Beach ripples with beauty and somberness. There's a word for that, though. It's on the tip of my tongue. Starts with an M. Melancholy?
Say that again?
On Melancholy Hill is one of my favorite songs of all time. It is truly Damon's Pet Sounds moment. It transcends the work and lives as one of the most gorgeous songs I've ever heard. The humming synth as 2D gives us a love song about the comfort of another. It's just chef's kiss. But don't let this once-in-a-lifetime earworm distract you from the other amazing tracks. Rhinestone Eyes, an electro groove about the artificialness of a fixation, gets you in a nice head bob while awkwardly trying to talk to a girl in a club. Deborah, please call me back. Superfast Jellyfish is a fun rap song about the awful shit you put in you. It's so weird and I love it for that. Both songs with Little Dragon, Empire Ants and To Binge, are personal favorites of mine. Empire Ants is basically two songs in one and has one of the craziest transitions ever. Seriously, we go from this solo ballad to a club rager. It's nuts. In contrast, To Binge feels like the next morning after the hangover. Maybe a hookup that didn't work out. It's a great duet regardless. Thematically though, Plastic Beach is Gorillaz as a band as its most self-indulgent and self-obsessed, and there lies the irony of Plastic Beach's environmental themes. Ultimately, the production around the album focused on Murdoch now believing Noodle to be deceased and having called it quits with Russell, who acts as the balancing force of their label. Murdoch ran rampant in his newly assembled studio on the Great Garbage Patch in the middle of the ocean. What he produces is collaboration after collaboration, a landslide of sponsors and guest musicians. To this, Plastic Beach is an album about synthetics. Synthetically assembled music, synthetically produced tracks, synthetically made hits. But when looking at all of Plastic Beach as a whole, this feels a lot more consistent with the genres they picked from. It started to feel like they had the concept at the beginning where they wanted to pull from for inspiration, kept it there, and iterated on that. It makes it a bit different from self-titled and Demon Days because of that, with those having more variety within the work itself. But Plastic Beach wasn't really over after the album was released, because within the same year, Gorillaz released an addendum under its own name.
Super Special Secret Fan Club.
It's a bit unfortunate to name this album The Fall because it sets low expectations. Which, to be fair, is kinda needed after following Plastic Beach. This is a 2D solo album and one made entirely on an iPad while touring. That's some 2010 novelty for you right there, but if you can accept it for what it is, then there are some nice gems in this piece. The Fall continues the electronic theming of Plastic Beach, but this time it has way more of a folk and country inspiration mingled in. This makes sense as, again, this is a 2D solo album made while touring America. You can see that Americana peek through. The best example of this, and my favorite song on this record, is Bobby and Phoenix with the great Bobby Womack. An electronic folk soul hybrid poured from the heart that makes me teary-eyed every time. I didn't know this, but at the time of this song's recording, Bobby was slowly succumbing to Alzheimer's. With that context, I dare you not to cry while trying to listen to this one. But when looking at the rest, it might seem to overshadow the other songs, but there are some nice, quaint melodies to be found on here. Amarillo and Detroit come to mind as good examples. There really isn't much to say about The Fall compared to the other albums we talked about. It's fine, but the way that people talk about this record, you'd think it would be the worst thing ever. Yeah, I didn't mention this at the start, but The Fall is notoriously divisive in the Gorillaz community. In retrospect, it's hard to see why when looking at this album as a whole. It's a harmless collection of tour tunes, D-side level stuff. But when you pair it with this little nugget of information, you kinda see where the resentment grew from. Other than 2 one-off singles, one of which with an excellent Andre 3000 verse, there wouldn't be a peep from Gorillaz, let alone another album, for almost 7 years. And if you thought The Fall was divisive, oh buddy, what they came back with is the dictionary definition.
Oh, I'm gonna come.
I think Humanz is one of the best litmus tests to give any Gorillaz fan to see what their taste in music is like. What makes it so controversial? Well, to most listeners, there isn't a lot of Gorillaz on this Gorillaz album. It's almost entirely the perspective of the collaborators. 2D is barely on this thing. Think of him as part of the noise rather than the frontman, which is relevant to the theming of this work. And you know what? I kinda fuck with Humanz. There's a line I think about from the rapper Logic that goes something like, your new shit isn't as good as your old shit until your new shit is your old shit. Gorillaz has been active again for a while now, but back in 2017, this was their comeback. Expectations were high, and those expectations were expecting something like their previous albums. Humanz was largely considered a disappointment primarily because it lacked the typical hallmarks of the previous 4 albums. It wasn't a rock album, it wasn't an album about the 4 members of Gorillaz, and it was barely an Albarn project. But most of all, Humanz just wasn't the triumphant return of the band that had disappeared for half a decade. It was an album about the potential world we would be living in if Donald Trump won the election. So, the issue is, what happens when that world happens to be true? Not to mention, it would be very strange for Damon, a white British guy, to monopolize the sonic space of an album about the African-American experience. 2D's vocals bowing out to bring more focus on the guest vocalist was not a choice fans were happy with, but the alternative is to win a Grammy and apologize for it later. Humanz is indeed a black sheep. On paper, that is. To me, I don't really think it's that far off. This album as a whole wraps itself in hip-hop and R&B, akin to what Plastic Beach did with electronics. And just like Plastic Beach, Humanz uses its genre to entrench itself in its own theme of a party at the end of the world. It has us float through segment to segment, floor by floor, of the wildest night in the biggest venue in the world. Occasionally, in the bleak, drunk, drugged-out atmosphere in the wild party, you get to see some familiar faces and hear some familiar voices. With the return of De La Soul in moments, 2D's vocals in Busted and Blue and Saturn Bars, and in a shocking twist of fate, Noel Gallagher of the previously mentioned Oasis singing the harmony with 2D. Primarily though, hip-hop and R&B work in tandem here as we bounce around the different perspectives of our featured artists, their viewpoints of the apocalypse, and what they think of it all. Right from the proper opener, Ascension, we hear Vince Staples going hard on the track about the inequality of African Americans in the US. I mean, Ascension kinda has a double meaning here if you think about it. Submission is a song about a dysfunctional relationship in stressful times. Danny Brown and Kelela give an amazing performance with these choir vocals in the background, truly haunting. Saturn Bars, the main single for the record, has Popcaan lament how he had to claw his way out of the rigged system that wanted him to be a killer. In the same vein, Let Me Out has Pusha T speaking to the legendary Mavis Staples from a youth to elder perspective on the struggle of newer generations of African Americans. The only 2D focus song, Busted in Blue, is literally just him singing a sad soliloquy that can be summed up by, "Man, shit sucks now." I think what the band was trying to say through Humanz was admirable. A lot of their messaging and intentions came from a good place. The execution, however, came off just a bit flawed. While there are a variety of different voices on this piece, the songs overall feel very similar to one another. And not because they are all on the same record, no. I mean, the core sound and instrumentation used feels like Noodle, Murdoch, and Russell took a break too. Like I said before, I like this album, but I gotta say, it could have used a bit more in that aspect. And I think Damon and Jamie agreed with that note.
What happened to then? We passed that. When? Just now. We're at now.
The Now Now is undoubtedly the 2D album. If Humanz went all the way towards the collaboration angle, then this is a therapy session for Stuart Pott. It's very personal in that regard. Again, coming from such wide perspectives all the way from Demon Days, the Now Now feels like a return to focus from self-titled. It's not as grand, and I appreciate it for that switch up. Sonically though, this continues the trend of picking a main genre and sticking with it, this time being synthpop. Not a bad pick, as it makes for a lush, smooth experience. Humility, the opening track, is kind of a nice bridge between this album and Humanz. It's double commentary about enjoying and bettering in a moment or dark phase in your life. In this case, 2D not having the abusive Murdoch around him at this point, replaced by the Powerpuff Girls' own Ace. But in a meta sense, the stressful Trump admin and its grip on the world. Working on yourself and trying to let the hard moments go by, it's a cute message. Sorcerers, one of my personal favorites on the record, follows a similar theme, mostly talking about taking a breath before acting. Think before you do, you know? Magic City is about experiencing a thought-provoking trip, one of those nights you probably had in college if you catch my drift. All of these songs are 2D directly reflecting to the listener about revelations he has had in his newfound clarity after Murdoch went MIA. That is, until Sukai, which is 2D admitting that he misses his abuser. It's very tragic considering how feel-good most of this record sounds. After all of this clarity, he still feels incomplete, like all of this isn't right. That, I gotta give props for. What a tragic way to end your album. The interesting part of the Now Now is the quality of its production. Gorillaz without Murdoch is a band shed of its hard rock influences. A band without the moody bassist is one that's adrift to be much, much lighter. With that, you get that electronic and synth sound, a 2D-led project. We are given a Gorillaz album defined by unpolished glam. Everything is bright and shiny, the music videos are bright and shiny, the sound is bright and shiny, the lyrics are 2D confessing to his worst traits and him admitting that, yeah, he might also be the reason why he's such a wreck just like Murdoch. It's easily the lightest album in Gorillaz' discography, but it admits to being much like 2D in execution, dumb, pretty, and a bit hopeless to say much of anything of substance. Meanwhile, Russell is having the goddamn time of his life drumming, and the usage of a typical band drum set peppers the album with its personality and influence. It's often easy to forget the drummer behind any rock band, but here, Russell's beats push 2D's eclectic taste into something more cohesive, more substantive. With that said, I'm not the biggest fan of the Now Now. I appreciate it for what it is, but it all feels so similar and safe, and I just don't listen to Gorillaz for that kind of music. I like the diversity, I like the experimenting, the mixing, the matching, creating something bigger than the sum of its parts. Say what you want about Humanz, but I like it more because it feels like a collaboration of multiple voices. Where's the collaborations?
Alrighty.
Oh, here it is. Yeah, Song Machine is awesome. I don't really have much to say about this one, although I can't really call it an album and compare it to everything else. It is an album, don't get me wrong, but it feels like a collection of singles rather than a cohesive thematic package. That's a small nitpick though, because Song Machine gets to why I love this band so much, heck, why I'm even making this video. We got alt-rock, bossa nova, hip-hop, electronica, house, funk, synthwave, reggae, it just goes on. I haven't met a fan that doesn't like this album, because it has a little bit of everything for everyone. And to be fair, it offered some good escape during the pandemic. I got to listen to Elton fricking John collabing with Gorillaz while social distancing, hell yeah! Chalk Tablet Towers, Desolate, Opium, Pac-Man, How Far, the whole album is fire! Song Machine has us visit Kong's studio during the pandemic. As a creative mode, it seems to be an attempt to redeliver on the goals of Self-Titled, an album made of collaborations to bring together a diverse set of musicians. What's interesting about Song Machine, however, is the way that the album emphasizes that with a sense of distance, likely inspired by the pandemic itself. Each track is detached because it was physically detached. Each song was created separately, rather than the typical way you would go to produce an album. You know, demo tapes, back and forth meetings, tweaking and testing what works, all of that. But instead, Song Machine aimed to release an individual song, then compile them together at the end of their first season, which I am looking forward to the second whenever that comes. What this does to the music is create a sense of finality to each track, like each song is a jam session between the members of Gorillaz and their guests in Kong's studio that week. Unlike Humanz, which feels like the world's grandest music festival, this is more personal, more akin to the tiny desk concerts and small-scale music productions we would associate with much smaller bands. This gives the album both a timeless capacity, since each song can stand alone, but also it makes for a time capsule in its own way. There's a vibe of loneliness running through Song Machine, of having to connect to another without physically being there. And each track tends to have a solid balance of 2D and the guest, creating a quasi-conversational vibe to the music. These are messages in a bottle, sent across the ocean, washing up on your shores and telling you sweet little tunes in an attempt to make you smile. And it works. But, not really much else to say about Song Machine. It's good. Wait, oh yeah, if you like this album, check out the Meanwhile EP they released not too long after. It has 3 original songs on it, all of which I love to death. It's very Caribbean inspired in its sound. I don't know, more of a PSA to get more Meanwhile fans out there in the world. Anyways, let's talk about crackers.
I woke up feeling the cheesiest.
My favorite word is cracker. It was my first word when I was a baby, and it's just a fun word to say. Cracker.
Bunch of fucking crackers in this cracker-ass island making cracker music. Fuck. Fine. Cracker Island is fine, I guess. I don't really enjoy this one as much. It feels like the antithesis of Gorillaz. Not in some nerdy fanboy kind of way, but I mean, look at the mission statement the band started with. It was to make fun of the pop acts and the rock bands of the time and how fake they were. And they decided to make a pop album with popular acts. You have become the thing you have sought to destroy.
You were the chosen one. It was said that you would destroy this thing, not join them.
Okay, for real, this isn't the worst thing ever. After all, their goal this time around was to make a pop album, so that's what we got. So I guess they succeeded on that front. It just feels like bland, unseasoned food at times, which is probably why it's called Cracker Island. But there are some moments of really good music here. Silent Running, Tarantula, Tormenta, and Controlla are some of my favorites. I was so happy to hear a Brazilian Gorillaz collaboration. Like, that is really cool. I got to talk to my Brazilian friend and channel artist about it when it dropped. Cool moment of cultural exchange, but to get to that, you gotta sit through some run-of-the-mill top 40 bait. The tired influencer makes me want to go to bed, and maybe that's the point. Cracker Island's production history has the most to talk about, I'll just say that straight out. In terms of lore, it has a lot going on. Cults of personality, Hollywood, LA, and more. Murdoch's got a cult, 2D is in a cult, Russell is seeing messages in the static of the TV, Noodle is having a spiritual moment. There is a lot, and a lot even for Gorillaz. So imagine my surprise when I found out that this album was A, part of a scrapped project for the Netflix Gorillaz movie, which, side tangent, there has been 5 distinctly different attempts to make a Gorillaz movie dating all the way back to Celebrity Takedown, and B, this album was primarily recorded in 11 days. It seems like the band was holding out for their film debut, and it simply never came, leading to an album assembled of broken bits and ends. You can see the bones of the Cracker Island film in the record, even now. It's got some of the most well-recognized music alumni of any Gorillaz album across the tracks, like Stevie Nicks, Tame Impala, and Beck. Then, you imagine it pairing with a film about Murdoch attempting to start his own cult. trying to drag people to worship him like a god by taking advantage of the sexy, mysterious power of stardom, Russell seeing the way the Hollywood industry controls people through media, and then you can see where this project was meant to go. A fun aping of Los Angeles, the place, and its culture, much like the eclectic Under the Silver Lake. But what we get instead is a joke without a punchline, a record about ultra stars making music about things of little substance, but not saying anything with the music because the meaning was left on the cutting room floor. Cracker Island's worst trait is not that it's pop or that it's a little boring. Cracker Island's worst trait is that it is smug. It's smug because it was meant to be smug, to be paired with a story about art made disposably, on obligation, and for ego. But without the story, all you got is the most obligatory Gorillaz album, and an obligatory Gorillaz album is the antithesis of Gorillaz. I don't want to talk about Cracker Island anymore.
I think your thesis is kind of messed up now, buddy.
I see what you're getting at. It seems like over time that Gorillaz has been siloing themselves into a genre for each album rather than going nuts and experimenting throughout the whole duration.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a problem. We can't really make this video if we don't believe in our own point anymore. If only there was a new Gorillaz album that just dropped that saves this entire video essay.
Yeah, if only there was a new Gorillaz album that not only reestablishes what makes Gorillaz so special, but reaffirms their place in the modern music scene, therefore amplifying a much-needed message about unity in such trying times.
If only there was a new... Okay, you know what? I'm done with the bit. Audience, thank you for being patient. We're finally talking about The Mountain. I know this video is like a month after it came out. Whatever.
In 2025, there was quite a bit of activity from the band that seemed to be gearing up for a new album. Hell, they made it into Fortnite, and yes, I do play their skins alongside the Daft Punk ones. It's so surreal seeing these here, yet it kind of makes sense. But anyways, in September of that year, unless you went to the Kong exhibits to hear it earlier, we were treated to the first taste of The Mountain through its first single, The Happy Dictator, featuring Sparks. And this was very confusing. In hindsight, I understand why they chose The Happy Dictator as the first song to bring us into the new era of Gorillaz. When transitioning from Cracker Island, it flows more neatly than the other singles would have. Sparks is a new wave pop group, a very established one at that. As such, the song takes life as a new wave call and response. You have the nice synthesizers, a catchy but not overbearing drum machine, and 2D on a trucker handset. It would have felt somewhat at home on Cracker Island, not only in sound but in theme as well. Cracker Island dealt with cultish behavior in the Hollywood scene. This song flips that into a dictator promising its people a utopia, buying into a false promise. I mean, the title itself and even some of the visuals are a play on the movie The Great Dictator. You get past the pleasant upbeat pop sound and underneath it's some of the most unsettling shit you've heard. It's this dictator trying to get you to buy in and see the false reality they want you to see. Hold up. Overall, it was a pretty safe pick. I'm always excited for new Gorillaz, so I kept an ear out, but this didn't blow me away. It's good, no more, no less, but that second single in October, The Manifesto, that got my attention fast. Not only for it being a bop, but it having a post-mortem section from Proof, who was killed in 2006. And it was in that single that the real power of The Mountain was revealed to me. This was an existential album. This was an album about death. I'm not going to beat around the bush here. I think The Mountain is one of Gorillaz' most powerful albums. It's on par with their classics, maybe even a bit better at points, something new and old fans have been waiting for a long time. And part of that, to me, is the band understanding what makes them stand out in the larger music cacophony. They are a concept group. All the way at the start, Damon and Jamie wanted to make something that put the music first before the stars. And that goes with the collaborators too. Everyone checks their coats and ego at the door and puts the art first. You deliver these unique collages that weave countless influences and voices together until you get something entirely new, paying tribute to each piece but never submitting to one voice. I think there was a long stretch, some more noticeable than others, where there was too much spotlight on the stars rather than the music. Shit on Humanz all you want, but that album did get the spirit of Gorillaz, to the point where the fans complained 2D wasn't on it enough. Cracker Island, on the other hand, was unable to release in a way where its ironic statement on pop culture could be heard. However, The Mountain pivots so far away from that by simply reflecting on the point they are trying to make. As I just mentioned, The Mountain is an album about death, but that's disingenuous to just leave it at that. Both Damon and Jamie are getting up there in age. Gone is the more youthful energy that persisted in their earlier works, and in its stead we find reflections of more experienced artists. During the creation of the mountain, both of them lost their dads not too far apart, and through that loss, it guided the pair to India to spread their ashes. That change of pace, that curveball that life throws at you, it shaped the album we would come to see. This would be a grieving process for the duo. Not to say that this is doom and gloom, far from it. There are moments of solemn grief, but most of it's a party with a purpose, a celebration of life. Let's break this down in thematic sections rather than going in album order. There's a lot going on here, but structurally, there are similarities in messaging. For example, there is a running fear of people using loss, the fear of death and/or grief to manipulate people. This could be an individual in your life or someone in a position of great power. In short, this is a warning of false idols, which harkens all the way back to the Demon Days era with Pazuzu. I previously mentioned the Happy Dictator, which goes along with this. A world leader promising a utopia without the fear of darkness or death. Something that obviously goes against the grain of the natural, a side that Gorillaz firmly allies itself with. The unease carries over to another single, The God of Lying, featuring the British punk band Idols. This trip-hop, reggae-inspired interrogation has what seems to be an unknown figure poking at 2D's beliefs. Given recent output, I would say this God of Lying is a stand-in for the noise of social media. All of these questions layering on top of one another that genuinely makes you question everything. From this, 2D just wants escapism from the anxiety. He chooses alcohol and quote-unquote going to the liquor store. Vices that temporarily can silence this, but are ultimately unfulfilling. In a similar vein, the electronic rock song The Plastic Guru, featuring Johnny Marr and Anushka Shankar, speaks of a real encounter Damon and Jamie had with a guru in India. This guy basically knew who they were before he met them, leading to this fake interaction. A spiritual guide with fakeness spread throughout each word, broken trust at your most vulnerable state. All of this comes to a head on one of my favorite songs on the record, Delirium, featuring pre-recorded vocals of Marky Smith. In terms of the mountain's messaging, this is the darkness swooping in. When you can't find anything to hold on to in life, when you are consumed by the fear and grief, all that's left is madness. Delirium, delirium, shrunken China heads, wooden tits on the front of a ship. It's all nonsense lyrics during the chorus as this club rager roars on. It's insanely catchy, but it leaves us with no conclusion. How do we fill this void and cancel out the false idols? How do we move up the mountain to paradise? What can we do? We can find acceptance. Acceptance is a journey. It's easier said than done to find peace and comfort in such horrible situations. You could say it's almost like climbing a mountain, hardship and peril throughout, but all for that beautiful glimpse at the top. But like all, we gotta start somewhere on that trip. The Sweet Prince with Ajay Prasanna, Johnny Marr, and Anushka Shankar was that moment for Damon, as it recounts his final moments with his dad by his bedside. It is a hard song to listen to without getting emotional, and I'm sure we've all experienced some form of loss, or honestly, will at some point. Comprehending that feeling, trying to rationalize the irrational, it starts with the idea that truly they are in a better place. And maybe that's literal for you. Personally, I have my own beliefs, but it's a matter that, regardless, their hurt is over. They can rest easy now. You keep thinking about them, always, because they are never truly gone. And maybe, in that moment, you reflect on your own mortality, somehow finding that comfort for when that day comes for you too. From the opening instrumental title track with the sampled Demon Days echoes of Dennis Hopper, it's set that this will be our end goal. We are here to find that enlightenment. The Moon Cave and the aforementioned The Manifesto are the direct parallels to the trip up the mountain. The Moon Cave is this groovy pop melody peppered with the voices of the gone but never forgotten of Bobby Womack and David Jolicoeur of De La Soul. Particularly David bouncing off of Black Thought's rhymes really put a smile on my face. Deceptively though, this fun-sounding song is about facing your fear head-on, and you're not alone doing so. The Manifesto, contrasted in sound being a mixture of Indian, Argentinian, and Detroit rap, still keeps that spirit alive, although this really is two songs in one. At the start, you have Torino having this upbeat verse about leaving all of the mortal worrying behind, connecting with the spirit of the mountain. I really love the line, "Just give me 21 grams so I can feel secure," which is a clever nod to the speculated weight of a soul. But you hear him as he goes on, catching his stride, almost like he's hitting a runner's high. But the tone turns dark as we get a nice Murdoch cackle to transition us into the second half of the song. Russell summons the spirit of the late D12 rapper Proof, actually unused recordings from the 9/11 sessions back in the mid-2000s. At first glance, his verses might seem disconnected. After all, these weren't recorded with the manifesto in mind. But at closer inspection, Proof's lines are still holding on to the vices that block enlightenment, in stark contrast to Trueno's mantra. This is further supported when Trueno claps back, reasserting what he said in the first part of the song. In the end, 2D closes this epic out with the truth that such a journey is not linear. We struggle, we hurt, we succumb to the bad stuff. We are human after all, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't push on and try. And try we do, as evident in the song Damascus with Omar Souleyman and Yasin Bey, formerly Mos Def. This Arabic rap electronic fusion details refugees leaving their homeland that they love. Yasin states, "Here to navigate the waves in the dark no map, stars in the heavens and the breeze on my back." Complementing this is Omar's verses, lines that are more longing than the forge ahead attitude of Yasin. Translated, he says, "Every day my eyes are locking with his. Tomorrow where will I be and where will he be? No, my first love, if you were a mere clod of dirt, I still wouldn't step on you." I think it's interesting to interpret this in the perspective of the album as a whole. You could take it literally and think he's talking about an actual person he's missing from his homeland, but to give my 2 cents, I think he's actually talking about the land itself. These 2 refugees are grieving the loss of their land, displaced and looking for a new home. This is grief, change, and hardship from the viewpoint of a countryman, which is even more evident by the live showing of Damascus proudly waving the Palestinian flag. No matter how horrid the situation may be, your will should persist. That will, and even the doubts that it could carry, transition into the shadowy light and the sad god. Asha Bosale, the most recorded artist in music history, has a spiritual back and forth with 2D, a positive and negative force respectively. She sings for the boatman to take her to the other side, where there is only happiness, victory, and true love. In contrast, 2D keeps posing questions of doubt. If God is love, wouldn't he just end all of this suffering? If God is who you trust, then what good is the promise in a world full of lies? Good with bad, light with the dark, one can't exist without the other, and we are left with the coexistence that occupies life. A shadowy light, if you will. It's truly a gorgeous Indian song, and one of the songs that constantly gets me to tear up. The other song, The Sad God, does the same actually for me too. This album closer poses an interesting response to the shadowy light. In the song's perspective, it's a creator talking to his creation. This god is saddened by the choices of his creation and wonders the point of it all. Black Thought retorts this notion, embracing the flawed world as it is what makes life so special. Even if they let me into heaven, I'd probably just move back soon. It's an uncomfortable place to leave the mountain, in all honesty. The last echoings we hear are of a god disappointed with his creations, and those creations embracing the chaos. Now, we've discussed the album at length, but that old thesis we talked about earlier comes back up. What defines Gorillaz as a band? What makes something a Gorillaz song? The Mountain, as an album, states it with ear-shattering clarity, the spirit of collaboration. The Mountain is a record defined by its influences. It's a mixing pot of culture and perspectives of death from both beyond the grave and before it. In this, the band Gorillaz still steals the show. They are the visual anchor that keeps the project together and creates a world where many things can be possible. Stories of ghosts and demons and plastic beaches and cracker islands in a world much like yours and mine. But the purpose of this world isn't to suck you into a story. It's to create the platform to bring people together, to let everyone have a go on the journey and path of each album, with Albarn and Hewlett acting as the guru men behind to make sure we keep on the path. Looking at the macroscopic picture, the most well-received Gorillaz albums were the ones that found themselves about something, commentary on the state of our world through the state of their strange, dark universe. What makes The Mountain an album on the same wavelength of Plastic Beach and Demon Days, as stated by Albarn himself?
Because the relationship between Jamie and I did sort of deteriorate quite a lot. He moved to France, and we didn't spend so much time together. And you know, this time round, we spent a lot of time together. We travelled a lot. We talked from the beginning. We talked about what we were going to do, and that really felt like it used to when we worked, like in the 2000s with Gorillaz. So in a way, you could say we've had a strange hiatus since 2010.
What makes it of the same cloth is how it takes an idea, the spiritual journey of rebirth on the path of mourning, and it lets every collaborator bring their own vision to what that means for them. For Black Thought, he speaks of having to harden to the world, to keep moving even as he hears the beats of his dead friends. For Marky Smith, it's all meaningless, it's all destined to fade away. For Asha, it's bettering oneself so that they can reach the other side, true happiness. Gorillaz fundamentally is about people. People coming together, people singing together, people finding each other and connecting through music with no frills, no fame, no pop charts, and no MTV. We've reached the top of the mountain. Is that truly all that's left for us?
It's a pretty downer way to close out this record, especially when considering it's trying to not make death and loss sound so scary.
On first listen, I thought so too, but there's a reason I've been going through these songs out of order. I don't believe this is the note that Gorillaz wanted to leave on. Well, the message at least. It is the last song, sure, but that's not what I took away from The Mountain.
Did you take away wooden tits on the front of a ship?
No. Love Delirium though, but no. The thing I took away is that the hardest thing is to say goodbye to someone you love. The last two Gorillaz songs I want to talk about to close out this longer than usual video are the duo tracks The Hardest Thing and Orange County. Orange County mainly, since The Hardest Thing is mostly a prelude. An important one though, as the legendary Tony Allen repeats his lines from How Far from Song Machine. Oya edidi erori. Admittedly, I didn't know this language existed before making this video, but it is Yoruba for, and forgive me if this isn't 100%, get up, we are almost there. A very fitting statement to open Orange County, as the repeating lines throughout The Hardest Thing and this song is, you know the hardest thing is to say goodbye to someone you love. And ultimately, I think this phrase is the mantra that repeats itself in spirit throughout The Mountain. We are insecure about mortality, whether it's your loved ones or even yourself. And it's quite simple honestly when you think about it, not for some grand reason are we afraid of the end. It's because it ultimately boils down to a long goodbye. And I don't know about you, but personally, saying goodbye to anyone, especially someone that you won't see again, truly is the hardest thing. I've done it before, I've grappled with that notion myself when going through my cancer treatment, and my loved ones are gonna have to deal with that when my time comes. And those people I care for, they too have people that will grieve for them when they cross the line one day, and that chain continues on and on. 2D and Kara Jackson provide more on this feeling. They are talking to someone who is gone, worried about the void that is left behind. Your legacy frightens me, will I keep it gold, or will it spoil before I get a chance to grow old? And through the bridge, 2D questions if he can take this anymore. Is it too much for one person to bear? So why are you trying to break me? These thoughts pile and pile, insecurities born from love. And yeah, I truly do mean love, as exemplified by the sound of Orange County. Hearing me speak on the subject matter might make it seem like this is a depressing march, but in reality, this is one of the most happy sounding, gorgeous songs in the entire Gorillaz discography. Bizarrap and Anushka Shankar do an amazing job on this track, giving off this blissful feeling. The whistles really are a nice touch. And when you put this all together, you realize that this only hurts so much because of how much love you shared with this person you lost. It was their last act of love. Because they loved you, and you loved them too. You still do, even to this day. When starting this video, I posed the idea that we need Gorillaz now more than ever. I think The Mountain is a perfect album to exemplify why that's the case. It's the ultimate Gorillaz album, a love letter to all of their previous works. There is a level of finality to this that really makes me question if this is the end for the band. Granted, they talked about passing the band on to another generation, but you see what I'm saying, right? Fittingly for an album inspired by Indian philosophy, I think this is the end for this chapter and the start of another. What that looks like, I can't really say. But so long as there are real problems to discuss through music, what's more real than an animated band to tell us how to push on? If we do lose them, then what a great message to leave on. So let's push on together, whether you are here or in spirit.